We are backed by JP Morgan Stanley, Standard Chartered, Lloyds. One bank we're working with at the moment has 36 mainframes to be replaced.
To build a great product, they will come.
Literally, we had 3 of the largest UK bank CEO turn up going, what are you doing? If you want to make the biggest impact, solve one of the hardest problems. Doing machine learning on large mission-critical data sets in retail banking is completely broken because the core banking systems are broken.
One thing that you go and you talk to a big bank, and they're like, what is the probability you will be around in 10 years?
Some people will cut it, some won't, and you don't know whether you hired right in the first place. You over-index and you spend way too much money when actually, in hindsight, just incrementally building would have been a better approach. Good talent only costs you, if not the same amount or 10% more in raw numbers, but they'll cost you a fortune in missed opportunity if you don't hire good talent.
Welcome back to another episode of In the Grill. Very excited today because today we have a guest who has flown in from UK. Not only for the show, but he had
only for the show.
Only for the show. Okay, yes, guys, only for the show. The Thought Machine is a very, very unique firm. They've caught my attention at many different parts, of my own journey. And I've always had these questions about Thought Machine because they're a fintech and, they've chosen an area which is very unique and very difficult. So when Gareth could make it, I was like, yes, we should finally have Gareth. And so let's, without any further, wait, Gareth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It was a lovely introduction. Now I need to live up to it.
Yes, no, absolutely. And so why don't you start telling the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Thought Machine.
Sure.
And then we will welcome you in the grill. And by the way, if you don't know why the name is In the Grill, wait till we ask the questions.
Lovely. So I'm Gareth Richardson. I'm the COO at Thought Machine. I've been at Thought Machine over nearly 6 years now. But before that, I had a career as an engineer and then into consultancy in financial services for a long period of time, capital markets, retail, etc. as I went through.
Okay. And so for those who don't know, what does Thought Machine do? Because that is an important part of us starting the episode.
So Thought Machine, we're known for being a core banking provider. We build core banking is one of those things that lots of people know about or think that it does a lot more than perhaps it does. But we've been responsible for sort of restructuring what core banking is. But today we also provide payments infrastructure and generally are trying to build a company that replaces the legacy technology in financial infrastructure.
Great. And so that brings us to the first question. There is so much to transform in the financial industry. People are making millions of doing just, RM portals.
Yeah.
Why would you choose the most complex part of banking, which is core banking? Why?
Look, if you want to make the biggest impact in this world and you want to see the biggest growth of your organization, solve one of the hardest problems, right? Yeah. What's the old phrase? We don't do it because it's easy. We do it because it's hard.
Yeah.
However, let's do a little bit of an origin story just to sort of tie it in of how we ended up here.
Yeah.
So founded by a gentleman called Paul Taylor, still CEO today, Dr. Paul Taylor, really came out of the machine learning side of things. And because of that, started doing, when he was founding Thought Machine and looking for the problem to solve, started talking to a set of large banks, which had data. The hypothesis was we'll build some machine learning and we'll do it on large scale data and bring knowledge from Google to bear into mission critical software.
Yeah.
The first few projects in this space was around looking at like spend categorization. We're talking 2014. So it was all about PFM, how much are you spending in personal financial management? What are you doing in your dashboards? How much are you spending on coffee each day?
You're right.
And in typical Paul and the team that founded the thing, it was built in real time as a spend categorization tool that a set of banks engaged Thought Machine to build for them.
Right.
It was a product, we were going to sell it. But once we tried to put it live, they said, what do you mean put it live? It was showing an innovation, but it took us ages to clean the data, get it right, take it out of the mainframe, dedupe it, scrub it, and give it to you. It was about 6 people's work for nearly 6 weeks just to be able to give you 1 day's worth of data. And this happened twice. And you start looking at that and you start going, well, my hypothesis of doing machine learning on large mission critical data sets in retail banking is completely broken because the core banking systems are broken, because data is locked up. And off the back of that, that was really what it took to do the pivot. And we started then investigating core banking, building the first sort of parts to that. And I've got to tell you, we had such amount of interest from the banking industry going, please solve this. And you look at it and you go, okay, if I can solve it, then there's a business case for every bank in this world to go and do it. If I can't solve it, then yes, I crash and burn and it takes a long time to do it. But we have made a great strides and been supported by the industry all the way through. And I've got to a point where we are now live in many institutions around the world and are really on the journey to, over the next probably 3 to 4 years, to have re-platformed an institutional bank off 32 other mainframes, reset the whole thing. So you said, yes, why would you do it in this place? There's an outsized win, I would suggest, as the organization that can solve this problem. And that's what we're going after.
That is a great answer. Whoever is your marketing and PR person will be very happy. But, so you're saying the banking industry wanted you to solve this problem. Walk me through the experience, the first time you took the idea of a core on the cloud to a bank. Obviously, you joined a little bit later on.
But I know the story.
Yeah, you know the story. Walk me through that whole journey when you took this code on the cloud to a bank. What happened? Did somebody have a panic attack or, everything went well?
No, but you've got to recognize, and I've been around the industry before this as well, you've got to recognize that there's a need for a solution.
Yeah.
And there's a desire for that solution from the most of the banks themselves. It's not like they're sitting there going, la, 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 life's good. They're sitting there going, no, life's not great. And I would like to change this, but I want to do it safely. Yes, I want it on the cloud because I believe in the cloud as a long-term agenda. But you've got to remember at that point, the regulators were making pretty good noises and still continue to be very supportive of the cloud. And as the arrogance, I suppose, of coming out of somewhere like Google and other things and knowing that you've built some of these sort of game-changing technologies, there's a belief that you'd build it, people will come. I mean, I don't mean that in a completely flippant way, but there was plenty of market validation. Literally, we had 3 of the largest UK bank CIOs turn up going, what are you doing? Tell us about it. And they were massively generous with their time in terms of saying, well, we really care about this. This is where the real problems are. This is what we really need to be solved, rather than thinking, oh, you'll solve digital banking or something else.
Right. And now, so, the next question, you must know, I really like you, but this is the format, okay? Till date, your most popular customers are still the digital-only banks, neobanks, or the offshoot digital banks of the main banks. You're still not in that core of a main bank, right? Why is that? Obviously the product is great. I know a few people who have rolled it out. They say great things about it. Why are you not transforming the core of big banks today?
So I think your categorization is wrong, but that's fine.
Yes.
We are transforming the main banks. It just takes a long time for that to come to fruition. And as one of the phrases we use in Thought Machine is think big, start small. The think big is the transformation of the bank. The start small is the build an architecture that you can move towards as your target state. The best way to do that is to get business users onto it and get customers onto it. One of the ways you can do that is launch either a new channel or a new product or a new feature. And it looks like some people use these words speedboat. I hate the phrase, but it's something that runs alongside that's faster than your current bank. No, what you're doing is you're building the architecture for the future and then you're moving things onto it. So Intesa Sanpaolo in Italy has been very open about the fact that it's a 3 to 5 year program for them to migrate the whole of their main bank. what we've done is launch a digital bank called Isybank, or they've done, which is the new target architecture. It's built for the main bank. It's not built for Isybank per se. It's built for the main bank, but with a materially lower cost to serve. And the goal was to migrate a load of customers across to solve that, to lower the cost to serve for some of those customers and provide them better products. And then the migration work begins to move the customers across, not necessarily in a big bang, but you move them product by product and fill up this new architecture. So we're doing that across nearly 7 banks, major tier ones in the world, and doing it for some of the smaller banks, if you like, some of the regional or domestic banks, to do exactly those. So they may look like digibank and some of them are, right? I mean, we had some massive successes for Standard Chartered with Trust and Mox, which I'm so proud of, and the work that's gone on there, because it's actually setting a benchmark for a lot of the industry to follow. And I know you've had different people on from Trust and others onto the podcast before, but if hugely, they're good, they set a goal, but what we really want to be doing is moving the rest of the bank across.
Okay, and so you're saying this is a step-by-step process, multi-year process, etc. Now, this brings me to my next question. And, execs in banking are in a hurry to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with banks. I'm sure obviously you do. And sometimes, like, you talk to them and they're like, I want to leave my stamp on this. I want to, give this like this grandeur and I want to talk about it. And they want quick results.
Yeah.
You're talking about a 5-year project, which will outlast the tenure of each of these, execs. Talk us through how difficult it is to convince somebody this project is going to outlast them, how difficult it is to convince them, how difficult is it to ensure funding, and the challenges around that. So, why don't you talk to us?
So typically when I've been in consulting or other places, you would have been selling to the MD or the CIO or the CTO of an area, or the group if you get high enough. What we're selling, we have to sell to the board and to the CEO and to the chairman and the CIO. This is a decision and the head of business, it's a decision that the group makes to do it. So it really comes down to, what's your pain? What's your costing? Do you think, as I say to a lot of people, do you really believe that your platform will be there in 10 years' time?
Yeah.
And you will be able to run on it?
Yeah.
And a lot of places are looking at that question now, and that's not a yes answer. It may be a maybe, or in some cases it's a no.
Yeah.
And when it's a no, then you have an obligation at a board level to manage that risk and to provide that funding over the time. But that does not mean to say that you don't have to deliver value on the way through and find those value points that drive that benefit. And this is where we look at, let's get the first bank stood up with some extra new feature or something the business can't do today, add extra revenue to it or reduce cost in some way. So what's that we can do? Then look at taking out an incremental approach to take out other bits of old legacy that you can turn off and incrementally fill those across while you're preparing for the big shift. Because it's not just a case of saying there's one mainframe, one core banking system in a bank. It doesn't work like that. There are usually acquisitions that have been made that are bolted on. There's different parts of businesses that have been built at different times that are bolted on. One bank we're working with at the moment has 36 mainframes to be replaced. All of those provide some element of customer impact to the different, and you can take out parts of those and move those across. That's your business win for each year, and you come up with a business program for each year, but it has to be backed by an overarching desire and a strategic plan for multi-year coming from the board to provide that funding and that impetus and direction to those executives who want to deliver something in 2 years. Go deliver that little thing that builds towards that big thing.
And that is a fascinating answer, because it gives you insight into how complex a pitch or how complex this whole process is, and the number of stakeholders that need to be convinced for funding, etc. Now, I've been on both the sides where I've represented somebody who's an incumbent and I've represented somebody who's a disruptor, just like
Yeah.
Now, one thing that you're going to love this next question. One thing that, you go and you talk to a big bank and they're like, what is the probability you will be around in 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
And that is their thinking. Maybe they're not asking. They are thinking. And you have competitors who have established in their own ways,
Indeed.
obviously they're not cloud native, but
Nope.
they are now on cloud, right? So
Vaguely.
yeah, we'll just assume that. How hard is it as a new entrant? Core banking is 5-year projects, 3-year, 5-year projects. So you are just in your second cycle now.
Yeah.
How hard is it to convince somebody that you are going to be around, or dispel doubts about your what do you call as sustainability?
Yeah.
And then you are competing against somebody who's been around for 40 years. People have the ecosystem supporting them is much larger. So talk us through that journey, because that you're giving out some really good points here.
Yeah, look, a lot of that is multifaceted, right? What's your goal of the company and the organization? Where obviously the first question is, are you going to sell tomorrow? Trade sale? No, that's not our goal. Those sorts of things, being very clear about that stuff up front.
Yeah.
However, the way we have gone about funding ourselves is in partnership with a lot of the major banks and with some long-term strategic investors, both from this part of the world in Asia, but also globally, which has put together a significant amount of people who are, let's say, have the firepower to give people that trust.
Yeah.
But also it's an industry movement. So we are backed not only by the large sort of PE and some VC houses, but also by JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Standard Chartered, Lloyd's, one of our first anchor investors that has been hugely positive to us all the way through. ING, this is an industry movement, and the reason why they're doing it is because it's buying it means that they don't have to compete, if you like, and they can ensure that this is around for the long term.
And that is a good insight. You have like a very good book of investors, which gives a lot of trust and stuff. Now, with such great investors, and I come from Symphony, which basically everybody in the financial industry, and David was in this seat, David Goodley, the founder. And I'll tell you, based on what I know, obviously I don't know as much as you or David, when you bring in a big investor like JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, all of these big guys, there is an inherent risk. One, they will overpower the whole roadmap. Two, you might end up becoming their incumbent software arm.
Sure.
These are risks, know. And how do you raise money from them and then neutralize them so that they do not overpower your decision making?
So you've got to remember that we always did both together. Yeah. So it wasn't a case of we're only going to have bank investors, and it took quite a bit to convince us to do the bank investors for all the reasons that you just talked about. Yeah. However, there's a few things. We've always been very adamant that every customer gets the whole of the product. There's no forking or special JP Morgan version versus the Mox version or the Trust version. Everyone gets the same thing. So if one person puts some money into the ecosystem to accelerate a feature, then everyone gets that feature. Right. That has nullified some of the I want to take just all of the development just for me, and I'm going to create my special thing off the side. It means that everyone gets the benefit from that stuff. That also came down to the architecture as well. We built it such that there's like an operating system that they're all investing in, and then there's configuration that's very rich that they can build and own and run themselves. Yep. So everything goes into the operating system, and everyone gets that operating system if you think in that way. So those pieces, but then also, how do you look at? We don't give everyone a seat at the board. Yeah. The board doesn't define the roadmap. It has a say, clearly, but it doesn't define the roadmap. We have a client advisory board, which does have input into where the roadmap should be going and what we should be looking at. But we, as execs and as the organization, set what that roadmap should be, and that's by talking to all of our customers about what do they want it to be. So it's a balancing act. There's been times where, in the early days, we were building a bank for Lloyd's, and, a lot of the work went to Lloyd's.
Yeah.
But that was great because that drove a huge amount of innovation for a lot of other people and a direction that became cogent for the other tier one banks. Yeah. It's been really positive for us in terms of having that fight, if you like. And we also are very clear about what will not implement. So our part of our roadmap is broken up into multiple phases, but one bit of it is will not do. And it says that we won't go into very simple, easy, but I'm not going to build you digital channels.
Yep.
That's not part of our company strategy. It's not what we will ever do. I'm not going to build you reg reporting suites. I'm going to build you the feeds that enable you to do all that stuff, but I'm not going to build the reg reporting suite.
Yeah.
Which means don't come and ask me.
Yeah.
Don't come and talk to me about that, and don't try and drive the roadmap in that direction. It's not going to happen.
Right. And that is insightful. Obviously, these are risks that most, vendors, most fintechs, etc., leaders have run into. A lot of thought has obviously gone into this. Now, just before I was coming in, Vinod Khosla, the legendary investor, he said something very interesting on a podcast. I was just hearing this out. He said 70% of advice that any startup gets is value negative.
Yeah. I thought you'd be going there.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you identify? See, obviously, sensitive topic.
Yeah.
Won't go in there. You are very seasoned. How do you identify whether this advice is value positive or value negative?
You don't always know, do you? But you have to be sure of yourself. We have a very seasoned exec board.
Yeah.
With a lot of us have come out of decades of working in lots of different startups, scale-ups, etc. So you don't go and ask for some parts of it because you don't want to know the answer that they think. You know the answer and you're arrogant enough to go and do it.
Yes.
However, in other places, the debate is very worthwhile. And it's about not just being a single investor debate. It's about bringing together, our board isn't just investors. We've got industry professionals on it. We've got large scale-up providers. We've got, so that it's building that board and then using that as a sounding post that you listen to a lot of things and then make your decision on which way you're going to go. But it's still your decision and you need to work it through.
Great answer. Let's get one step deeper. You guys are on a great journey. Very few fintechs start and look at an IPO, and we'll get into that IPO part later. You must have done a lot of things right. Two or three things that you think Thought Machine has done right that emerging entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs should look at.
So things we did right and got wrong afterwards as well. There's one that jumps straight to mind is that we didn't jump to it getting a massive sales organization. We jumped to getting the product right and the product selling itself into those organizations and scaling the product and investing very heavily in engineering and those sorts of talents to start off with. We resisted for a very long time going, it's selling well. Let's go and get a sales force of 1,000 people and send them out into the world to go and sell it. We did that later, and that was a mistake as well. But anyway, we resisted that for a long time, and that was a significant benefit to us. It meant that the execs stayed close to the customer. We all knew what was going on, and that we were able to get out and do those things, and the engineering team.
Before you answer the question, because this you have touched upon a very, very good point here. There is so much noise around product-led growth.
Yeah.
Build a great product.
Yeah.
They will come. So you are suggesting that is not always a great strategy. And obviously it is useful when, you are starting off, you're closer to customer.
Yeah.
When do you think you should make a transition from a product-led growth to like a sales-led or somebody else?
So it changes. So we did we had an amazing 2-year run at one point where we were really constrained. We had a lot of demand coming to us, and it was the good thing about demand when it turns up at your doorstep with product led is it's already qualified.
Yeah.
It's already shaped somewhat without you being involved, but it's been shaped before it's turned up. And the time to market, time to sell is a lot shorter, and you have much more rich conversations. When you send salespeople out in the world to generate leads, they generally obviously generate every bit of lead they can find because that's their job. And therefore it's not as qualified and not as well done. And if you scale that too fast, because we had a great couple of years where everything was coming through, and we felt at that point, we're probably missing some of this market. You could see others from Temenos and others announcing deals that we didn't see.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so we need to look at how we're getting, which conversations are we not in? Why are we not in them? Those sorts of things. And then we concluded that was because we weren't spending enough time in the relationship and shaping things early enough. So we started to move towards a sales-led growth, as you're talking about. However, I think it's almost impossible to know how far to go with that, and where you've gone, because it takes it takes 12 to 18 months to train anyone into being any good at this stuff, and then you add a complicated sale like core banking into it, and you really, some people will cut it, some won't, and you don't know whether you hired right in the first place, and you don't know that for 18 months really until you get to that point. So you over-index, and you spend way too much money getting over those things and trying to make that transition, when actually in hindsight, just incrementally building would have been a better approach than we took. And we're moving more back to that approach, and we've made changes in that organization to sort of slim it back down again, got to be honest. Because I think we stepped too far down the road too fast.
No, and that is the, in my day job, I am like a chief growth officer, right?
Yeah, you have that problem.
Yeah, we not exactly, because, all I've done in my life is scale businesses.
Yeah.
For 15 years. I've done like literally nothing else. So, we have the other problem. We go a little bit slower by choice. But I'll tell you why I dived into that question. Because so many times, you're sitting into these meetings, and, obviously my organization is not going to like this answer, you're sitting there and they're like, oh, product-led growth. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, but is it really going to scale? And, are there enough people to scale it? Exactly the problems that you're saying. And what happens is, once you start seeing these missed opportunities, I think that should be your trigger. Yeah. That you see some opportunity that you should be absolutely number one choice, and you are not part of even the discussion. That is your number one trigger
reason to switch.
To switch. And
but you don't have to switch wholly overnight and jump straight further down the road, right? Yeah.
And that is where we are conservative. We are not, in the day job, we are not funded. We are a bootstrap 25-year-old firm, self-sustaining. So nobody really says,
let's go.
There's a
lot of great about that, right?
Yeah. So let's just go and hire 500 people now. So great answer. That answer was one of the most honest answers I've heard, and because it tells you not only what you missed before, how, we overstepped and how you managed that. Now that is one thing that they should do. The new entrepreneurs should do better.
I mean, hire well. Honestly, like, spend a lot of time getting great talent.
Yeah.
Good talent only costs you, like, if not the same amount or 10% more in raw numbers, but they'll cost you a fortune in missed opportunity if you don't hire good talent.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time in our hiring process. We still today hire solely internally. Yeah. By that I mean internal recruiters running the whole process of search and selection. And we test everybody in a structured way. And so many people I see miss that. They do sit down. You're a nice guy, I get on really well with like, brilliant.
Yeah, thank you.
Come along. Let's spend 12 months learning to see if we can work together. No, it's a complete craziness, because that person is sat in a seat that someone great should be in. I'm not saying you're not great. Sorry. We need that slot that you've just hired someone without testing and proving that they're any good is taking up room and money that you could be investing in somebody else. And it really matters at the start. You need to make great steps, because we all know like 90% of the firms fail. So you have to make the right steps every time top talent. It's the only way forward. Don't get lulled into, oh, I haven't been able to hire this person. I've been trying for 6 months or 2 months and I haven't been able to get them. So I'm just going to get this guy that's in front of me. No, it'll always be a problem. And if you do hire the person, though, that's fine. But have a process to get people out fast if they're failing to deliver against what you expect.
Very insightful. And, we have had like a rush of questions towards you. We will go a little easier on you. But we are going to meet again on the second part of this episode, where we are going to go into the partnerships you have done. Yep. We have not talked about AI. How can we have a podcast which doesn't talk about AI? And your IPO journey. And there are a few other questions that we want to ask you.